Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. If you are new, warm welcome. And if you are liking it, just give it a big thumbs up, comment, share, and subscribe if your heart desires. Thank you so much. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to do any kind of makeup. We're going to do a true crime. I had done this once before on a channel that got hacked, so I'm gonna do it again just because I just feel a little more passionate about this than my makeup at this point, because, and you know, that sounds odd for me, that sounds odd, but you know, we're gonna start talking about a really old case, and we are talking about William Bradford Bishop, and at this point he would be in his middle 80s, older than dirt, no kidding. This is the 10 most wanted poster, what he would have looked like in his mid 40s when he committed the annihilation of his family, which is what they call familicide in psychiatric terms. And in this photo over here, these are pretty much bust renderings from, I believe it was Karen Taylor that did these beautiful busts, did a really awesome job. To show on America's Most Wanted. They did not keep his picture on very long. This is what he would probably look like today, probably quite a little bit older. Yeah, he's Mr. Creepy. Yeah. He would probably be the same age as my mother-in-law. He was born in 1936, I believe. Yes. Let's just get back to the technical information. He was born August 1st of 1936. He was born of prominent parents. His father was William Bradford Bishop Sr., and his mother was Lobelia Amaryllis St. Germain. She was Canadian. He pretty much had kind of both a little bit extra of his education, because he was fairly smart. I mean, really smart. I guess fairly is not the best word to use. I mean, he was just really intelligent. He attended Polytechnic in Pasadena and eventually went to public schools. He was tall and athletic. He played football and was class vice president. So he really liked the idea of, you know, the fact that he was smart. He had somewhat of an inferiority complex, so to speak. He was rather eager to attend USC. He did eventually cave on his mother's advice and was accepted at Yale. He was hoping to play football yet again, but he did concede to play intramural for the university. He got his high school sweetheart at that point back home, and eventually he did marry Annette Weiss. He's very intelligent, and at this point was developing some insomnia, depression, and anxiety. Always a little moody and desperate to try outdoing others. So he was kind of labeled an overachiever with a huge inferiority complex. Word caught him that he had been needed back home, so he took a year off because of financial hardships back home. he suffered an identity crisis, kind of like that Superman type of feeling, that he was above everybody, wanted absolutely everything out of life, overthought and focused a lot on his depression and the fact that he was, I'm kind of average kind of thing. But he did have somewhat of an ego. In 1959, he and Annette were married, and then he enrolled in the Army. They did have baby number 1, William Bradford III, and later in the following year, in 1960, he enrolled in the counterintelligence. I guess in the 1960s, it was, the military finally realizing they kind of need spies. So it's like, this was right up his alley because he is a huge risk taker. They have baby number 2. His name was Brent. They didn't give a full name. He is now extensively keeping a journal. He was like meticulous journaling, like crazy. And in that journal, he's kind of getting, dark and creepy in there. I mean, we're talking psychosis at this point. Now he speaks 5 languages fluently: English, Spanish, French, Serbo-Croatian, and Italian. What really sent him over the edge is when he loses his father in 1969. He develops an alter ego. The last place before going home was Africa. So he's kind of like globetrotting all over the place, and then finally he's back home. After globetrotting all over the place and eventually came stateside, they start looking for a home. His mother was helping to make the move, and when they moved into Bethesda, Brad is now working for the State Department. The worst job, he thought. He thought, oh, great. I'm going to be, like being a paper pusher. And eventually, they started living above their means. Nobody, thought, that they were, like, teetering on the edge. They thought the world of these people. They thought bishops were like the idyllic American family. They had baby number 3, Jeffrey. After being at a reunion party, they started having, like, the time of their lives. But then he starts, talking to other people, like within, kind of the same bracket, kind of. But, apparently they're making better money than he is. He realizes he's not making the money he should be. And for the first time in his life, he realizes that the $21,000 he's making is definitely not enough for Bethesda. Bethesda, Maryland is an expensive place to live. Not just now, but back then. He started noticing that people are starting to realize that, not just him, but his wife started to get, a little bit high-strung. Both of them started taking medications for, like, anxieties. It was noted that she was becoming not just anxiety, but claustrophobic. She was at a point in her life where she wanted to pursue an education instead of, like, her wife duties, and he felt that he was on a short leash with his mother in the house because his mother was helping with stuff. He felt ill-prepared for his job at this point and always wanting that next promotion cycle. He and Annette would argue about stuff, and his mother would always take his wife's side in everything. And it would make him feel really, really uncomfortable. And I can imagine that. That would be, like, ridiculous. Okay. Fast forward to March 1st of 1976. Brad was walking out of the State Department, running into his colleague, and you can find this also on Unsolved Mysteries. And I believe it is season 3, episode 15. and said that he was not feeling well and was going home. His colleague suggests a lunch date next week and sees him out with a cab. And under his breath, he's like, if there is a next week. He goes to the bank, takes out the last $400 out of his account. We're talking the last of the last money out of his account, and heads to Sears and the hardware store. Seeing that his name hasn't made the list again kind of like throws him over the edge. He's like, that is the last straw. He pulls a ball-peen hammer from the shelf, a pitchfork, and a shovel. He also puts gas into a small tank he purchases as well. So for all intents and purposes, at this point, this shows intent in using his credit card. And this is like mistake number one, because his name is now on the grid. It shows that he doesn't care and is kind of like reckless in his thinking. So every single demon in his head is liking, it's like getting dark and creepy in there. So he waits till close to 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, thinking that the kids are probably already in bed. There are reports that the oldest boy might have been on the phone with his girlfriend and getting ready to go to bed. He comes in the house, seeing his wife with a book, hits her square in the back of the head. We're talking a ball-peen hammer. I mean, those things are very, very heavy. And then twice more. I want to make sure. He's like, I've had enough of this. He goes upstairs, seeing the boys asleep, and proceeds to kill all three of them. It was a mess, apparently. None of them had a chance to fight back. He's gotten a little more time before his mother comes home because she's out taking the dog for a walk. He immediately starts bludgeoning her. He takes his time to shower, take an overnight bag of things, the dog, and all four bodies in the back of the family station wagon. He's running down the road, and eventually he can't stand it. He rips off the rearview mirror so he doesn't have to see what the heck he just did. I don't know if he's trying to, just compartmentalize at this point. His dog Leo in the passenger seat and drives miles and miles, I'm not sure how many miles, down into Tyrrell County, North Carolina. From there, he's already making like a lot of mistakes. He goes deep into a place that seems kind of familiar to him and starts digging a hole probably about as deep and wide as a jacuzzi. Literally throws the bodies in there. And doesn't stop there. He just lights the bodies on fire. Dousing them with gasoline and throws a match. Pop. So now his prints are on the pitchfork and the shovel and on the gas container. He's got his dog, so he doesn't need anyone else. He meets up with a lady friend in Jacksonville, North Carolina. People believe that this lady might have been of Caribbean heritage. She's kind of like, quote, colored. And back then, it might have been their first idea. It might have been her accent. Not just the color of her skin, but her accent. He purchases a pair of tennis shoes. And guess what? Using that credit card again. Now he's got a 2-week head start on the police. He's about 1 mile from Elkmont. About that couple miles, or that mile from where he may have had from a place where he went hiking a lot when he was younger. Back in Bethesda, a neighbor sees that the bishops have been missing for longer than usual, and usually tell her whenever they're not going to be there, because she waters the plants, and does whatever else. She's noticing the mail and the newspapers are piling up. She's decided to call the police at this point. The officer comes out and meets her at the front of the common drive, because there's those common drives that kind of split with the houses. Upon entering the house, he sees a lot of blood. The evidence of how Annette would have been sitting and reading, and then climbs the stairs, enough to see into two of the bedrooms, just enough to see, into two bedrooms, and came right back down the stairs. And this was part of a transcript from Unsolved Mysteries. The police officer was later quoted saying there wasn't a single place where there wasn't a place where you couldn't put your hand where there was a sign of blood. I mean, it was a mess. The site in North Carolina was found by the site of smoke by a ranger seeing evidence of smoke. So it's like there's smoke building up, and there's a ranger tower. So they can see it from miles. The police were called, and they found and determined that because of all the earmarks of murder were there, but no identification. They noticed that the identification markers on the pitchfork weren't totally burnt off. So they can see, at least like a serial number or the name of the place where it was sold from. They traced everything back to Maryland except the bodies, because they don't know who these people are yet until a week later. I think it was like 6 days until they can finally figure out who these people are. Like Bishop always said, I put them in their place. And that's what he did by burning the bodies. Brad was an amazing outdoorsman. He loved hiking. So he knew he had the Appalachian Mountains to himself. He and Leo had been together in the woods before. He and Leo left the vehicle with tons of evidence, a bottle of Serax because of his craziness going on in his head. Lots of blood, cigarette butts in the ashtray, a lot of blood up in the wheel wells, believe it or not. At first the police were looking for, yet lacking any motive. Looking further into his life and other identifying the body 6 days later, they realized he was a ticking time bomb. There was some confusion as to whether or not he was seeking out for a contract kill. There was a lot of inconsistencies and twists and turns with this idea. There was some kind of twist, there was like, I believe it was somewhere in the South, like South Carolina, like somewhere in the prison system. He was looking for somebody, to try to pull this off for him. And, but there was too much, twists and turns and inconsistencies to really figure out if there was any kind of anything for that. But he also has a pilot's license. Brad has a pilot's license, and nobody knows if he's ever used it. So we don't know if maybe he decided to pilot a plane or a helicopter and just jet it out of there. He supposedly had a few extramarital affairs. There's been a few theories that he just decided to disappear. He used his expertise with his counterintelligence to just fake a passport and do that. That James Bond lifestyle that he wanted so bad. Stockholm, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, and with the fluent languages he can speak, he can just blend in. And someone with his social security number, wrong person of course, he was spotted in Geneva with a lady that was not his wife by a person who swears up and down that it was him. So yeah, he was certainly a ladies' man. He's like in his 40s and probably into his 50s by then. after, you know, like, running all over the place. He was probably in very excellent condition. He was noted to be a health nut. March 19th in 2000, so we're like coming up into 2000 here. Someone at a local flea market was kind of browsing a table and sees a journal and purchases it and sees that it is marked Brad Bishop's diary. This person, after reading it, feels he should Google it first and eventually gives it to the FBI. So now he sees, you know, that there's some weird stuff in there. There's been at least 2 hoax tips. And then there's a, trying to think. A very famous person, known for doing like a lot of sculpture type work. Her name is Karen Taylor. She did a sculpture for America's Most Wanted. Made a really, really good bust rendering, as you can see from the pictures. Really did a wonderful job. And this I can't figure out why on earth, you know, they did this, but maybe they had good reasoning. Don't know. In 1981, the FBI decided to take Bishop off the top 10, thinking that publicity just isn't working. It isn't helping. Then, just this last year, his name pops up yet again. In March of 2021, a woman in North Carolina, I think her name is Susan Gilchrist, I believe, she was adopted and is doing a DNA service to find her biological father. It was forwarded to her, and then the FBI confirmed, because they wanted to do a second look on this, that she was in fact Brad Bishop's daughter. He didn't know he had a daughter. This was kind of news, big news to her. She's like, wow. We're assuming that he was like kind of like partying with some of the girls at Yale, like in between the time while Annette was finishing up her classes in California. So we can assume that he might still be out there running around. Who knows? He would be like in his 80s, his mid-80s. I mean, who knows? I mean, some people are just living a lot longer this day and age. I mean, we're talking someone who is at least 6 foot tall. I don't know how tall he'd be right now, because as you age, some of the discs in your back kind of, you know, like shrink a little bit and make you look a little bit shorter. I mean, there have been like a lot of sightings, and whether or not they are credible, I am not sure. I did see, because I am a big Unsolved Mysteries nut, where one of his colleagues ran into him in Italy. He was spotted by one of his neighbors in, where the heck is Basel? I think Switzerland, you know, and she was getting on a train, like an opposite car, and she could see over into the other car, and she looked at him like eye-to-eye look at him, and he looked back, like with this creepy look on his face, like, oh my gosh, I've been had, you know, someone notices me. But then, you know, her train, you know, went, and he's still sitting there, you know, in the car that hasn't even, you know, gone yet. So it's like, he's like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? But yeah, so hopefully there is still a way of catching this guy. I am thinking, and this is just my opinion, my theory, that, you know, He is not here in the United States. He's probably somewhere teaching, because he speaks all those cool languages. I don't think Serbo-Croatian is really much of a big language to be taught anymore. That's more Czechoslovakian anymore, I believe someone told me. And he likes to hike, so he could be like hiking through the Alps for all we know. And I don't care what anybody says, you know, it's like, if he is out there in plain sight and he is here in America, you know, that's where we're going to find him. He's probably going to be in plain sight. Now, I have seen something on YouTube, but I'm not sure I'm totally convinced. Someone said that he is dead, and, you know, that someone spotted him in Northern California, and that there is like a little family plot somewhere that he has been buried in. I don't know if that's right or not, but, you know, there's always that chance. I mean, I would very much like to get that guy collared if he is still alive, because he needs to be brought to justice. You know, anybody who takes out their entire family, they deserve to be, you know, like, put in jail for it. Thanks, guys, for all your time, and I will see you next time. And if you want to see the next one, we're going to be covering John List. Bye, guys.